Hi students, as I have already promised you and I told you that I will give a easier diagram where we can see the endocrine glands easily or their locations. So the diagram what we can see on the screen, it is comparatively very easy. So the first gland, it is the hypothalamus. Then the second gland it is the pineal gland. Then we have the pituitary. See, the hypothalamus and the pituitary, they are actually interconnected, and the pituitary is present just beneath the hypothalamus. And they are actually making the bridge or working as a bridge between the nervous system and the endocrine system. Then we have the thyroid gland, parathyroid gland. Then we can see thymus. Then we have thymus. The thymus gland, so let me clarify the location of the thymus gland. It is present above the heart. Okay, it is present. The location of the thymus gland, it is above the heart. Now, thymus gland, in case of children, it is actually large in size. And the more we get older, the size is reducing. And that phenomenon is called atrophy. Okay, so that phenomenon is called atrophy. Now, next is pancreas. Then we have adrenal. See, adrenal glands are present on the surface of kidney. Okay, so adrenal glands are present on the surface of the kidney. Then we have gonads. Left hand side you can see ovaries, what we can say in case of females. And then we have testes, what we can see in case of male. The ovaries are present inside the abdominal cavity in case of female, but in case of male, the testicles or the testes are present outside the abdominal cavity in a scrotum or in a sac-like structure that is called scrotum. Okay, I think it is clear to all of you. Now, I want to discuss few more points regarding the endocrine glands. The first one is the endocrine glands, which are actually responsible for the secretion of the maximum hormones or the main endocrine glands. Examples: pineal gland, hypothalamus, pituitary, thymus, thyroid, pancreas, etc. are categorized as or known as organized endocrine gland. There are some organs in our body, like let me remind you the previous diagram. If you see, I think you must have seen the diagram in the previous video, where along with the main endocrine glands, there are some other parts of our body or other organs of our body were also marked. Like heart was there, liver were there, kidney was there, gastrointestinal tract, etc. So these are actually not endocrine glands. These are basically organs, but sometimes they also secrete certain endocrine hormones. So sometimes they also secrete and functioning as endocrine gland, and they secrete certain hormones as well. Let us take an example. I believe that all of you have studied RAS in the chapter of excretory system. RAS means renin-angiotensin aldosterone system, where we have also studied about ANF, which is working antagonistic to RAS, or which is antagonistic to RAS. And that factor, that is ANF, that is atrial natriuretic factor, it was actually secreted by the wall of heart. So can you see? Even though heart is basically a pumping organ of our body, but it is also secreting some hormones. So in this case, this type of gland, this type of organ which are functioning as endocrine glands are categorized as non-organized endocrine glands, or they known as non-organized endocrine glands. Okay. One more point. Thomas Addison, Thomas Addison is considered as or known as father of endocrinology. See, in the subject where we study about the endocrine glands in detail, that subject or particularly known as endocrinology. The study about the endocrine glands is known as endocrinology. Okay. Now we will move on to the next part of this chapter, and we will discuss about hypothalamus and neurohormones. So hypothalamus and the neurohormones. Already we have studied in the chapter of nervous system about the hypothalamus and hypothalamus and its different and other different parts. Now here the approach is a little bit different. Now hypothalamus, here it is working as an endocrine gland and it is secreting certain hormones as well, and those hormones are known as neurohormones. Now why we call it as neurohormones, you will understand. Just wait. Now first, the location. See, the hypothalamus is actually present, or it is lie below, or it is inferior to the thalamus. So hypothalamus is present inferior, or it is below the thalamus it is present, and it provides the anatomical connection between the nervous and the endocrine system, right? It is actually provides the connection between the nervous and endocrine system. Now this connection is, how it is happening? The connection is actually done by hypophysis. To whom actually? To whom it is connected? It is connected with the hypophysis. What is hypophysis actually? It is pituitary gland. So that means the hypothalamus and pituitary glands are interconnected. Okay, so they are interconnected. Now the hypothalamus is connected to anterior pituitary or anterior lobe or anterior part of the pituitary gland. It is also connected with the posterior part of the pituitary gland, but in different ways. Okay, see, the pituitary gland, it is basically having two parts. First, mainly it is having two parts. First is your anterior lobe or anterior pituitary part. Second is your posterior lobe. And there is an intermediary lobe as well. We'll discuss all the part in detail when we are going to discuss about the pituitary precisely separately. Okay. So right now we are going to discuss about the basic or the main two parts, that is your anterior pituitary gland lobe and the posterior pituitary lobe of pituitary gland. Now the hypothalamus is connected to the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland by hypophyseal portal veins. Okay. However, it is connected to the posterior lobe of the pituitary gland mainly by axon of neurosecretory cells. So before we see the diagram and discuss in detail all those things, let us have a quick idea about the location of hypothalamus. See, this is a diagram where we can see the brain, and in the brain at the diencephalon area, the floor of the diencephalon area, just after the thalamus, we can see we are having the structure that is called hypothalamus, but I have already marked with arrow. And below that, below the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland is present, or we can say in a better way, the pituitary glands are actually dangled. The pituitary gland is actually dangled right beneath the hypothalamus. Okay, so pituitary gland is dangles right beneath the hypothalamus. You can see it is here. It's a very small structure. I believe you can see this is the area. This is the pituitary gland and this is the hypothalamus. This is pituitary and this is hypothalamus. Fine. Now let us go to the next diagram to have a better idea. So this is our brain, and so this is the diagram where the hypothalamus and the pituitary is marked properly. So I believe you can see this is the area. Can you see that? So this is the top part or above the pituitary gland we can see, or at the floor of the diencephalon. That is, see, hypothalamus is a part of forebrain, all of you know that. So we can see the hypothalamus here, and just below that we can see the pituitary gland. Fine. So this is the location. So let us just magnify that part, and if you magnify that part, we can see this is the structure. Okay. So this is the structure after the magnification. So this is the hypothalamus part, and this is the pituitary part. Okay. And this pituitary and the hypothalamus both are actually interconnected, and they are actually working as or forming a cross bridge. Not cross bridge actually, they are having a bridge, and they are functioning as a bridge. My mistake, not cross bridge. They are functioning as a bridge between the nervous system and endocrine system. Okay, so this is that was the diagram to make you to have a better idea. Now we are having one more diagram on the screen right now. This is the diagram of the hypothalamus. See, you can see there are different parts of the pituitary glands are also mentioned here. See, there is very important thing you need to understand. Whenever we are discussing hypothalamus, we cannot neglect the pituitary, and whenever we are discussing the pituitary, we cannot neglect hypothalamus. So we have to discuss both the things together to have a better idea. So first of all, you see here the different parts. Okay, so different parts. Okay, and we'll discuss in detail about those parts and everything in detail in pituitary gland when we are going to discuss pituitary gland in detail. Okay. So now let us continue. Now what I was actually discussing about the hypothalamus. See, the hypothalamus is connected to the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland by a hypophyseal portal vein. Okay. So they are connected with, see, can you see here? This is the hypophyseal portal vein, and this is hypophyseal arteries, this is hypophyseal portal vein. So these are connected. Can you see it? So these are connected with the pituitary. Which part of the pituitary? Anterior lobe of the pituitary. See here. This is the anterior lobe of the pituitary, which is connected with the hypothalamus with the help of hypophyseal portal vein. Okay. Now the same hypothalamus is connected with the posterior lobe of the pituitary gland mainly by axon. So can you see here? So these are the can you see this part? So there is a difference. Left hand side you see the anterior part of the pituitary is connected with the hypophyseal portal system, where we can see the capillaries and the network of capillaries. Can you see the network of capillaries or the blood vessels? Okay, but in this case, or right hand side, where we are having the posterior part, the hypothalamus is connected with, axon, or it is mainly connected by axon. Now in this case, there are no veins, there are no capillaries, no blood vessels. Now it is connected only with the help of axon. Is it clear to you? Please try to understand the difference. In case of anterior lobe of the pituitary, it is connected with the hypothalamus with the help of hypophyseal portal vein. That means the blood capillaries and the blood vessels connecting these two parts. That is your anterior lobe and the hypothalamus. But in case of posterior lobe and the hypothalamus, it is connected with axon. Okay. I hope it is clear. Now the axons of what? The axons of the neurosecretory cells. Now the hypothalamus, they are having special type of cells which are present in the hypothalamus, which are known as neurosecretory cells. Okay, these are known as neurosecretory cells, and which is connected with the posterior part of, or the posterior lobe of the pituitary. Okay. Now the hormones of the hypothalamus influence the functioning of the pituitary gland. Always remember this. See, the hormone of the hypothalamus, or the hypothalamus is actually controlling the pituitary by its hormones. Okay, and that is why, and the pituitary, see, let me repeat it again, the hypothalamus actually controlling the pituitary by its hormone, by secreting the hormone, and the pituitary is controlling the rest of the endocrine gland in our body. So pituitary gland is controlling the rest of the endocrine gland, and the pituitary is controlled by hypothalamus. So that is why the hypothalamus is also considered as the supreme commander. Right? I hope it is clear. So this much only we'll discuss today. And other parts, like you may have some doubts, or other parts are also there. So we'll discuss other parts when we will come and we'll discuss the pituitary in detail. So till that time, please have patience. So let us go back and see and finally discuss and the main points now. Okay. First, the hypothalamus is a part of the nervous system, but it releases hormones, and those or these hormones are known as the neurohormones. So hypothalamus, it is a part of the nervous system, even though it is release some hormones. Just now I have said that endocrine glands are responsible for the secretion of hormones, even though hypothalamus is secreting the hormone, even though it is not a proper endocrine gland, even it is a part of the nervous system, even though it is secreting certain hormones. Okay, and the hormones are secreted by what? The neurosecretory cells. Just now we have seen in the diagram, and because of that, these hormones are known as neurohormones. Okay, now the neurohormones regulate other endocrine glands. How? By the help of pituitary. Okay, so the neurohormones are regulating the other endocrine glands. Okay, it is also working as connection or link between the nervous system and the endocrine gland. Okay, who? Hypothalamus. Hypothalamus is also working as a connection or link between the nervous system and endocrine glands. It is making a bridge or connection between the endocrine gland and the nervous system. Okay. Now the hypothalamus is located on the floor of the diencephalon, as I have discussed, and it is made up of masses of gray matter. Hypothalamus is located on the floor of the diencephalon, and it is made up of mass of gray matter. Okay, I hope it is clear. Now next, those mass of the gray matter are known as hypothalamic nuclei. The mass of the gray matter are known as hypothalamic nuclei. Okay. Now next, the hypothalamic nuclei have neurosensory cells or neurosecretory cells, what we have just seen in the diagram, which secrete the neurohormones. What it do? It secretes the neurohormones. So the hypothalamic nuclei, which is present in the hypothalamus, they have neurosensory or neurosecretory cells, which are actually finally secretes the neurohormones. Now the neurohormones are basically of two types. First is releasing hormone or releasing factor. Second is inhibiting factor. See, you have to understand very carefully here. Hypothalamus releasing the neurohormones. What is the main function of the neurohormone? To stimulate the pituitary to release certain hormone. For what purpose? To go to the particular endocrine gland and stimulate that particular endocrine gland to secrete certain hormones. Okay. And inhibitory factor means the hypothalamus secreting the inhibitory or secreting the inhibitory factors. As a result, the pituitary will also secrete the inhibitory factors, or it will actually secrete the inhibitory factor, which will go and inhibit the particular endocrine gland to stop or inhibit certain the production of or the secretion of certain endocrine hormone or certain hormones. Okay. Now from hypothalamus, the neurohormones are brought to the anterior lobe of pituitary by hypophyseal portal system, and the anterior lobe of the pituitary secretes tropic hormone. Now you need to understand what is the meaning of tropic hormone. See, tropic hormone means, see, there are two types of hormone basically we need to understand. First is tropic. Please make a small correction here. See, the tropic, sorry, it should be only P-H-I-C-P. Tropic spelling is T-R-O-P-I-C. There is no H. So please make a note of it. H is not there. It's only tropic, T-R-O-P-I-C. Okay. Now, there are basically two types of hormone. One is tropic hormone. There are two types of hormone which is secreted by the pituitary. One is your tropic hormone, another one is your direct hormone. Okay. So what is the difference? Tropic hormones mean they are actually going to target, or it is going to affect a particular endocrine gland to secrete a particular type of hormone. Let us take an example. Like in case of FSH, LH or TSH, like TSH, that is thyroid stimulating hormone. So it will, when the thyroid stimulating hormone is secreted by the anterior pituitary part, it will, this is the tropic hormone. Why? Because it is going to stimulate the thyroid gland, and then thyroid gland will release thyroxine. Okay. So the hormones which are going to affect the endocrine gland to stimulate, or sometimes it stimulates and sometimes it inhibits. Okay. So stimulate the endocrine gland to secrete certain hormone, or it affects certain endocrine gland to secrete for their secretion. Then those type of hormones are known as tropic hormone. Then what are direct hormone then, sir? Okay. Let us take an example of growth hormone, or growth hormone. Now what happens? The growth hormone is not going to affect any endocrine gland. It is directly going to see what is the function of the growth hormone. The function of the growth hormone is it is going to affect our bone and large muscles. Okay. So the growth of the bone and the large muscle, the growth of the large muscle in our body is actually affected by this growth hormone. So bones, muscles, these are not endocrine glands. These are the part of our body. So can you see the difference? In the first case, these hormones, like the example TSH, it is affecting thyroid gland to secrete certain hormones, like example is thyroxine. But in this case of the direct hormone, like growth hormone, it is not affecting any endocrine gland, it is directly affecting some part of our body. So this is the difference. Whenever the hormones are the group of hormones which are actually affecting the endocrine glands for their secretion, then we can categorize them as tropic hormone. And the hormones which can affect the different parts of our body, okay, instead of glands, different parts of our body. In case the example was I have given you growth hormone, which is affecting our bones, muscles. So those hormones are known as direct hormone. Okay, so there are two types of hormone: tropic hormone and direct hormone. So I hope it is clear. Next, the posterior lobe of the pituitary also receives the hormone by what? Axon. Axons of what? Neurosensory cells or neurosecretory cells. I have discussed in that diagram. Okay. Next, oxytocin and ADH are produced or synthesized by hypothalamus but secreted by posterior lobe of pituitary. It is very, very interesting and very, very important. We will discuss later in detail. Now just you try to understand what is the meaning of this sentence. See what happens. The posterior part of the pituitary, already I have discussed when I was discussing the diagram with you, that I think you have already understood. You have seen that posterior part and the anterior part of the pituitary is connected with the hypothalamus in two different ways. Anterior part is connected with the blood vessels or the capillaries. Posterior part is connected with axons of the neurosecretory cells or neurosensory cells. Okay, so they are not having any capillaries which are connecting both these parts in case of posterior lower pituitary. Only the anterior lower pituitary is connected with capillaries or the blood vessels. That is your hypophyseal portal vein. Right. So in case of the posterior part, the hormones are actually synthesized and produced by the hypothalamus. Okay, and it is secreted or it is stored inside that axon, and those parts are called hearing bodies. We'll discuss in detail later on. And whenever there is a requirement of that particular hormone, it is only released by the posterior pituitary. Okay, so it is not secreted by the posterior pituitary. Those hormones, examples like oxytocin, ADH, they are not secreted by the posterior pituitary. They are only released by the posterior or secreted by the posterior pituitary. So there is a difference you need to understand: secretion and production or synthesis. Secretion means release. It is released. Sorry. So the oxytocin and ADH, they are synthesized by the hypothalamus and they are stored in the hypothalamus part, that is in the axon part of the neurosecretory cells or neurosensory cells. And whenever it is required by the body, it is released by the posterior lobe of the pituitary. I hope it is clear. Now next part we'll discuss the different types of hormones which is secreted by the hypothalamus and how it is affecting the pituitary, how it works. There are 9 different types of hormones which is affecting the pituitary and which is released by the hypothalamus. We'll discuss. There are 2 categories. One is your releasing hormone, another one is your inhibiting hormone. See, the hypothalamus is actually releasing 2 types of hormone basically. First is known as releasing hormone. Second it is called inhibiting hormones. You can see that this diagram where you can understand hypothalamus is releasing the releasing hormone. What is the function of the releasing hormone? The function of the releasing hormone is to turn on the anterior lobe of anterior pituitary part. And what about the inhibiting hormone? It turns off the pituitary gland. So whenever the body requires the hormones from the pituitary gland, anterior part of the pituitary gland or anterior lobe of the pituitary gland, then the hypothalamus will release the releasing hormone. That means it is going to stimulate the anterior pituitary part to secrete certain hormones. Okay, and when we don't require those hormones, then it needs to be stopped. The secretion needs to be stopped, and that is also done by another type of hormone which is secreted by hypothalamus, that is called inhibiting factors or inhibiting hormones. Okay, so hypothalamus basically secreting 2 types of hormones. One is your releasing factor or releasing hormone, which is helping the anterior pituitary to get switched on or get turned on, and another set of hormone that is your inhibitory factors or inhibiting factors or hormones, which is going to switch off the anterior pituitary part of the pituitary gland. Okay, so in the next part we are going to discuss about the 9 different types of hormones, their functions, how it is affecting the pituitary gland, how it affects the secretion. Everything will be in detail. So thank you for now. So we'll meet in the second video. Thank you. The next video, sorry. We'll meet in the next video. Thank you.